I hope I did enough job to increase the fonts and they're okay. And second thing, I added one slide just today because I've read some news about AI. So things are happening in AI almost every like week or even every day. So whatever I say today, so the slide at the bottom says September 2025. I think it should have said probably more like 13th of September 2025, which means like as of today, this is what I can recommend, but it may totally change like in a week or so. Now, about me, as Shruti told, Laravel Daily is my main channel, which is online for 10 years, almost 10 years now, with recently surpassed 2,000 videos. So I even like introducing myself to friends or to people who don't know me enough. I introduce myself as a YouTuber now, which is sounds really cool for kids. So my daughter is 9, so whenever I go to her school and like I'm YouTuber there, so I'm a celebrity. It doesn't matter which is like the topic development or not. So yeah, I can consider myself a YouTuber about Laravel for 10 years and a blogger and a tweeter. Probably you follow me somewhere. But also recently, as Shruti told, I started another channel, the third one. There's a separate channel about Filament, which I'm passionate about. And AI Coding Daily started 1.5 months ago. Now it surpassed 2,000 subscribers with like 25 videos now. And this is my new passion, I can say. So I started playing around with AI and stuff almost a year ago. I released first courses on Cursor in January, I think, and I experiment quite a lot with various things, and this is what I want to talk about today, but with Laravel kind of background and context. By the way, if you don't hear something or something is not clear, I have my phone here with Twitter DM, so shoot to DM me if I need to change something, talk louder or whatever. Right, so questions I will discuss. Again, I hope the font is clear enough. I increased it a lot yesterday. So three questions, three typical questions that I see online. So what should I use, what AI or LLM, how to prompt better, and how to generally increase the quality of what AI agents or AI assistants give to us. Again, with context of Laravel. And question number one is the obvious one, the number one by far question. So which IDE should I choose? And I remember when I started with Cursor, it was basically only Cursor at the time, or maybe the most known one. So it was like, do I still use PHP Storm or switch to Cursor, or do I still use VS Code or switch to Cursor? That was the question like a year ago. Now it's basically a mess. A lot of VS Code forks, a lot of CLI stuff, so Claude Code and Cursor. And by the way, side note, just as I'm talking, as I was waiting for be introduced here, as a typical AI user, I started a Claude Code agent, and in the background now it is running in planning mode, which will help me to plan the future video. So I wasn't sure about what is the approach about something in Filament. So I asked Claude Code, and now it is running in the background. And after this presentation, I will check the answer for planning mode. So this is one of the ways how I use AI and specifically Claude Code in that case as a planning assistant or researcher, you can say that. But here's the names on the screen of AI editors, and it's changing all the time. So Cursor is the number one in the list, but is it still number one popularity? There are no official numbers, but the main thing is quite a lot. So this is an open question for now. Then question number two, or question 1B, then under the hood, which LLM do I use? So for example, I use Cursor or I use Claude Code or I use VS Code or whatever, then which model I choose for specific prompt. And again, there are a lot of models now. So probably the leaders on the market now are Claude 4, Sonnet, and GPT-5 now appeared pretty recently. But then also for Claude, there's Sonnet, there's Opus. For GPT-5 is now one GPT-5, it seems like, but there's also GPT-5 High, GPT-5 Low, and others. And there are also like sub-versions of pretty much every LLM, including like open source LLMs, which you technically can run locally, but for that you need pretty powerful computer, which is not really for everyone. So basically, again, the choice is pretty huge. And the good news for you that I tried most of them, a lot of combinations, and basically I felt the pulse because until you try those tools, you can read like Reddit posts, you can read, watch YouTube videos, but those will be experienced by others. Until you actually try, it's with same thing like Laravel framework. Until you try, you don't really know whether it will be good or not, or Symfony or whatever. It's not about AI at all. So my kind of advice for general thing is you should try, but I did try a lot, and I will tell my opinion and my basically the answer after trying a lot of different editors for like, I don't know, 6 months or so now, actively trying with the YouTube channel Let's Try It I have, the answer which IDE and LLM to use out of all that variety and dozens. And the answer is it doesn't matter. So, and I'm not even joking actually. It doesn't matter. This is my experience lately, especially in last like month or so, where it feels like the models are good enough, the mainstream models like GPT-5 and Claude 4 Sonnet. A lot of editors also became kind of wrappers on top of Sonnet 4, including the same Claude Code, including Cursor or Windsurf or VS Code. Basically, people started using whatever editor they want and then launched Claude 4 Sonnet, which is probably the most economically viable model for last few months, I guess. But what IDE you use isn't that important, and what LLM you use isn't that important because, as I said, they are all pretty good enough compared to like a year ago, where we had like GPT, was it 3.5? No, it was GPT-3, then 4, and then Claude Sonnet 3.5 was average. But since Claude 4 was released and now even GPT-4 was okay, and Gemini, so like mainstream main models, they're all okay. They're all good. They can be better or worse depending on the scenario, but the choice of IDE and the model doesn't matter that much anymore in September of 2025. And these are a few proofs. Not sure if you see that, like I increased the font, but I couldn't increase the screenshot from Twitter. This is one example just a few days ago, or was it like 5 days ago? So a guy named Josh tweeted first that spent an hour trying to build a feature with Cloud Code, and it just kept screwing it up. Then switched over to Codex, and within 15 minutes, new feature was in production. So that was the tweet below. But then he retweeted 16 hours after that, the same exact scenario, but vice versa. Trying to build a feature with Codex, switch to Cloud Code, and then the feature was in production. So this is just one example of like it can be good and bad both for the same person on the same day with different features. I actually hear some noise in the background. Is everything fine? I hope I will still continue because now I'm talking and I see only the screen, so I don't see you guys in the audience. I don't see or hear you. So again, if something I need to change, DM me on Twitter. Anyway, so they are all good and bad at the same time, and also they are relatively cheap or roughly same price. So if you get into Claude ecosystem, so you get Claude Web and Claude Sonnet for $20 a month or something. Same with ChatGPT subscription, you get GPT-5. And there are also even cheaper deals that you can find, for example, using IDE like Tray, I think it was. Also, Windsurf allows like $10 per month usage, but those usages are limited in a way, and also it's hard to calculate how much it would actually cost at the end of the month if you use it extensively. So if you use it all the time, every day for prompting basically anything, then it's not cheap anymore. But you can start cheaply or even for free. And recently I tried Gemini on my channel, AI Coding Daily, and it failed miserably. So it was free, but the model, I'm not sure was it Gemini CLI or Gemini 2.5 Pro, the model that I used, but it didn't deliver. It introduced syntax errors, and it was a like surprisingly bad choice, but free. But for any of those IDEs and LLMs, it's cheap to try, like pay $20 to whichever, try for a month, and then see what happens. There's also, next slide, there's LLM cycle. This is a tweet. I didn't find the original screenshot and tweet, but there should be asterisk on one of them, constantly changing. So whoever launches the next big model is now in the lead of this cycle. So probably the latest one is Grok. Grok released Grok Fast 1, I think it's called, which is surprisingly good for fast cycles, for fast questions. But then OpenAI is active with GPT-5, which is like the new thing. And I will talk about that just in a minute, about GPT-5 specifically. Then I think at some point we will have Claude 4.5 or Claude 5, and then this will move here. And then Gemini is kind of silent at the moment, but Gemini 3 is coming maybe sometime. So yeah, it all goes in cycle pretty much every month. And this is another example of a tweet. Again, I hope you see that from my screen, the text. So, but I will read it for you for those in the back who maybe don't see. So John O'Nolan, creator of Ghost, tweeted, "I took a couple of weeks off. Can someone catch me up on the 4 years of AI news that happened while I was away?" It's coming that fast. So the thing, like you take a couple of weeks off and then the trends change. So he gathered that we all hate Claude now. So this is the latest trend, like in a couple of weeks, I guess, or even 1 week, Claude Code and Claude in general became much worse in quality, and people started like hating that or switching to something else just in recent week or two. So opinions changed. And then this is the tweet and the slide that I added just this morning for this presentation. The shift starts happening from Claude Code in the sandbox. This is one of the sandboxes for vibe coding. So basically, after a few people change or report on Twitter or Reddit or YouTube that some model gets worse or some pricing change, then other people started reading, trying, and maybe confirming that the problem is real. And then they started shifting in more people in volume. So this is when the shift in general in the market happens. So this is what happens now, like the latest news, so to speak, is from Claude Code. A lot of people are migrating or trying that in both to Codex CLI with GPT-5. And I also tried to use both recently, Claude and GPT-5, for planning, for example, planning of the project on the web client. I have subscriptions for both Claude and ChatGPT. Those pro plans for $20, so it's not the expensive one, the most expensive one. So yeah, and they are kind of on par. Sometimes one is better, sometimes another is better. I realized that GPT-5, for example, thinks for longer if the task is pretty complex, but it provides better results, better kind of considering a lot of details that Claude is trying to just one-shot quicker. But GPT-5 may be worth waiting for a little bit longer for better result, for better accuracy. But this is, again, just for my projects, for my examples. So if the question which IDE and LLM to choose is irrelevant because it doesn't matter that much which of those leading ones you choose, then it leads us to question number 2, which is actually important. And what is important is how to prompt. Basically, your input to your AI agent or AI assistant is what matters probably the most. Whichever LLM and IDE you run, this will be the deal breaker. What is your prompt and what is the context that you give to that AI agent? And this is what we'll talk about in more details. So this is typical dev prompt. I tweeted it recently. If you ask Cursor or Claude Code or whichever, just write me some code. This is what actually happens. If you don't provide enough context, you usually regret that how you formulate the prompt. Then you are angry on the LLM. Why does it generate the code not in the way that you thought it would? But did you actually tell the LLM how you want things to be? Did you give enough guidelines, context, and the backstory, and the end goal, and how to test? So that typically happens. I see people ranting about the quality of LLM or IDE or AI in general, but they don't give enough context. It's similar to like you give the job to a junior developer, and if you just give like vague description like create a CRUD or something, they would create some CRUD, but it would not be exactly as you thought or exactly as client wanted. So the more context you provide and the more accurate is the prompt, the better, basically. And here I have 6 tips for prompting. This is where I'm 15 minutes in, so I'm on time. Pretty cool. So this is for now the overview, and we will talk about each of them deeper, but I will just read it to you loud for people in the back again. So first is tell AI exactly what you mean. Then second, reference files and folders in the context. AI IDEs allow that in different syntax, but still. Number 3 is provide latest docs using MCPs usually. Then number 4 is plan mode, which exactly what I'm doing in the background now. Claude Code is running plan mode for me with providing me the answer of how to approach the project before writing any code. And then also tip number 5, strict rules and guidelines. And 6, smaller scope. Let's talk about each of them in a bit more detail with practical examples. I tried to find or construct the prompts, what you would prompt to your Claude or Cursor. In this case, it would be Cursor, the screenshots from Cursor. So this was actually my example, my use case. Like a month ago, I was playing around with various LLMs, and I asked LLM to remove the description from tasks table in Blade. Basically, it was a CRUD of tasks, and I asked it to remove column description. And I didn't realize that LLM would understand that prompt with removing the description not only from tasks table visually, but also from tasks table in the database. So it went through all the models, migrations, seeders, and everything, changed 20 files, and then at the end of that, it did what I actually wanted to remove just from the Blade. So then from that example is that I specify that I want the table, the column remove in just Blade. And you would probably underestimate how many times AI misunderstands the context because our language is vague and how we describe things is not the way how LLMs understand. Some words are double meaning, maybe the language barrier, if you're not a native speaker like myself. Because I'm like in English, I lived in London for 3 years. That's where I actually learned to speak English, and this is where I started YouTube channel. But generally, English is not my native language. So after 10 years or more of shooting content, it got better. But generally, I may make some typos or misunderstanding it in wording. So basically, the prompt. Detailed prompt with exactly what you mean is very, very important. And this is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is similar, reference the files. So even the same example can be improved. I can talk to AI with like remove column description from Blade on the left side, but also if I'm a developer, and I am a developer, and here we're not talking about vibe coding that much. Of course, some tips can be used for vibe coding without learning how to code, but we're all developers here, and let's talk developer language. We can specify the specific files or folders or, I don't know, something, because we know where to change the code, we just don't know how, or we are too lazy to like remove column description. It's better to offload something to AI. Sometimes it depends, than do some tedious work ourselves. So if we know what is the file and folder, we should reference because it would massively, massively improve the output. Tip number 3 is about documentation. This is probably number 1 problem with using AIs and LLMs. It's not that big of a problem now in September 2025 because LLMs got better and their so-called cutoff date, they're trained internally on, for example, Laravel 10 it could be, or it could be Laravel 11. So the training date is like much earlier than today. But you can pass a lot of documentation, so the context window got bigger, and you can pass the documentation to any like Cloud Web or ChatGPT. or ask it to search the web for latest documentation. But for IDEs, there are two tools that I use. I've been using a thing called Context 7. It's a free MCP server. It's free, but now they introduced that you need to have API key, but it's free. So you need to register, just like they fight against spammers, I guess, this way. So just by adding use Context 7, Context 7 would analyze your code, analyze the prompt, detect that you're using Filament, detect which version, and then put the prompt into their internal AI to get the documentation of Filament 4 and specific. So there are two prompts, two calls to API to MCP server. One call is which is the tool, so it will return Filament 4, and then it will be second prompt to, according to your context, it would be like prompt get Filament 4 docs for Filament resources, something like that. So the actual result of calling Context 7 would be the chunk or a few chunks of documentation relevant to your prompt, and then that context would be added to prompt to Claude or whatever LLM is under the hood. And the same happens with Laravel Boost. Now the recent package, which is still, by the way, it's not even in was the general access. I think it's in beta version, but it's still also very good already. And in Laravel Boost, there's also MCP server, local, and it also searches the docs. It says automatically that it automatically does that. In my personal experience, sometimes it misses the creation of the docs, so I still deliberately use search docs in the prompt. Then tip number 4 is planning mode. This is also very important. We are like developers, we want to hurry to write code, but sometimes, or most of the times, it's beneficial to talk to AI agent and ask it for a plan. So how exactly would it implement? In Claude Code, there's specifically plan mode, so you can click Shift Tab, I think twice, and then it enters the plan mode, which means it will not change any code. It will just give you the answer, give you the plan. For Cursor and others, you should specifically give the plan or enter ask mode, I think it's called. So it wouldn't change the code. It would actually provide you the plan, and then you iterate on that plan. So a few prompts later, then you kind of approve that this is okay, this is not okay, and then you shift to actually coding mode, and then the results are much better basically after the planning mode, instead of trying to one-shot everything in the code. So planning mode is also underrated. Then, of course, what is not underrated, because a lot of people are using that, is rules and guidelines, and also Laravel Boost is helping with that now. I have a few videos about Laravel Boost on my Laravel Daily channel, so you can watch those. Just search on Google or YouTube Laravel Boost. Yeah, have a few videos, and basically you can provide the rules either globally, like Laravel Boost MDC or Claude MD, which Laravel Boost is providing. It's kind of concatenating the various documentation and various rules into one big files, which is like 500 lines of code. So this is one way of doing that. That also you can divide the rules into like Filament MDC or Filament MD. Also you can, for Claude, for example, you can place the file Claude.md in a subfolder, like here I showed app Filament Claude MD, which is relevant only for Filament, and Claude Code would automatically take those guidelines only if you're working with files in that folder. So it's a separate topic how to use those rules and guidelines, but you have to do that. So you have to tell the rules and guidelines, and the important part, it needs to be updated. It needs to be improved with every prompt that you make. Basically make changes in the rules and guidelines as well. And also probably you should store those rules and guidelines globally somewhere for all of your projects or the projects of your team, so how you prefer the guidelines for Laravel or for Filament or for whatever framework you use. And then tip number 6 is more like philosophical thing, and it's not even about AI that much. The smaller the scope, the smaller the task you give to AI agent, the better quality you have. It's just like it's similar again to junior developer. In many cases, you can put parallels between junior developer and AI agent. So if you offload a bigger task to junior developer and leave them for a week, then they will likely make some mistake or make some misinterpretation in day number 2 in small things, which then would skyrocket into like bigger bugs and going off the rails. So the smaller the scope, again, in my testing, I confirmed it multiple times. So one task, quick result, and then you move on with the next task. So this is an example on the screen. So if I ask it to build the full CRUD, it's like there will be a lot of small inconsistencies, small details, which I would love to change, but they are kind of too late to change in a way. Some model, I don't know, relationship or something. Instead, you should chunk that into portions like model and migration first, and then factory and seeder first, based on, for example, model, which you can already reference as context. So basically smaller scope and smaller steps. Question number 3, like the global question, how to improve AI code quality. And now I'm entering like the last 5 minutes of this talk, so I will not get into much more details here, but still, the main, like how to improve code quality, rules and guidelines, as I mentioned, they need to be constantly improved. Based on what LLM does wrong, you need to put that in the rule, and then next time it will get better. Also, automated tests after every prompt, which you can also ask AI to generate automated tests. But tip number 3 is also kind of related to that. So you can ask it to generate automated tests and to run it for you, but still, without manually testing, time and time again it failed, for example, to like the tests go green automatically, but there are some UX bug or UI bug or something inconsistent, or the tests are generated incorrectly. So you need to still manually check the code, check the tests. Doesn't matter if there's like a lot of tests, like generate 15 tests and they're all green, it looks fine, but still check the code all the time. Human tests is still, with AI currently, it got much better like over last months, but it's still like in that 10% of cases, it will go off the rails. And if you trust it blindly, those 10% of cases may cost expensive and dearly. So human tests and human review after pretty much every step is undeniably needed. And this is where we get to the conclusion of this talk. And after all that experiments, I tried to summarize it in 30 minutes, and I guess I succeeded at that. I didn't rehearse that, but it turned up as 30 minutes roughly. So the conclusion, and I will say something controversial. Controversial is this. Human is the bottleneck while working with AI. And this is the screenshot from Reddit. Recently, there was a post which I shared called, "Do you feel tired faster after working with AI?" And this is what I noticed about myself, and a lot of people noticed as well. It's not talked about enough. So if during the day you keep prompting AI and keep reviewing the code, which technically gives you more speed to deliver the tasks, but then you need to make more reviewing of the code, double checking, which is tiring. I think like you need to read code much more to double check. And yeah, I noticed about that myself, and also my colleague Modestas told me about that. So whenever he works with AI a lot on that day, especially if you're working on a few projects, so trying to speed up and deliver faster, at the end of the day, like I'm drained and I'm tired. Which means like AI is doing its job, it's not tiring. So whatever we prompt and whatever we review, this becomes kind of not the bottleneck, maybe is not the right word, but AI will do its job no matter what. Well, you pay for that, but still. But human is the one in the driving seat, and human is the one making decisions, making reviews, and this kind of the overall result still depend on human much more than it does on the AI or LLM. So that's why, kind of controversially speaking, we're not in the age of like Skynet and Terminators and AI taking over the world, but AI is smart enough and often smarter than us in some cases in like those tasks that like research, find the docs, notice patterns and stuff like that. But we need to make the decisions and the review, which may be tiring procedure. So kind of the final conclusion is you need to help AI to help you, because it doesn't read your mind. It does whatever you ask it to do. And the good news is that you're still in driving position as a driver of that all present and the future. But you need to be clear on what you want to deliver with AI. What is the task? What is the scope? What is the context? What tests to write, automated tests or visual test or manual test. Now, by the way, PEST 4 is underrated here with visual testing and browser testing, so I advise you to take a look at that if you haven't yet. But yeah, it's your job to help AI to help you. Thank you. End of the presentation. And now if you have any questions, you can ask them here or email me povilas@laraveldaily.com or comment on any of my other YouTube videos.